So in this lesson, we're going to wrap up what we're calling Chapter 1 with 1.7. With any luck, this section might be the easiest section of anything we've done to this point because I think everything we do in this lesson is going to be review for you of a previous class you've taken. So we're just going to talk about perimeter, circumference, and area really quickly. My guess is most of you have been doing some of these figures for a long time. As we go throughout the year, we're going to look at some more complex figures, but we're just doing this lesson to kind of set the tone for area and perimeter moving forward when we get to more complex figures. So hopefully this lesson's not too difficult for any of us. So here we have a square. The formula for a square to find the area is you take one side and you multiply it by itself. So we would just say like area is equal to one side squared. That's where the idea of squaring it comes from. You're taking base times height, essentially, or length times width. But with a square, those are the same thing. So you just take s times s. Perimeter of a figure is the distance around the figure. So for a square, you take one side and then multiply by 4. So perimeter is equal to 4 times the length of a side. So 4s. That's a s, not a 5. For a rectangle, it's pretty similar, only our length and our width do not have to be the same. So area of a rectangle is length times width. The perimeter of a rectangle, you just add up around the outside. So you would have L plus W plus L plus W. Most often you're going to see that written as 2L plus 2W. But for this, you're essentially just adding your way around the outside. For a triangle, the area is 1/2 base times height. If you've never seen where the base times height times a half comes from, you can picture a rectangle around that triangle, and you can see half of this part is taken up by our triangle, half of that part is taken up by our triangle. So we're just taking the rectangle and then dividing by 2 or multiplying by half. The perimeter of a triangle, you just add up around the outside, so you need to know all 3 sides. So our sides here are labeled as A, B, and C. For a circle, these are our pi formulas. So the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. If you forgot what a radius is, it's the length that goes from the center of the circle to the outside of the circle. That's our radius. Pi, that Greek letter pi, or that number 3.1415926, etc., 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 actually comes from the idea of the perimeter of a circle. So the perimeter of the circle is equal to pi times the diameter of the circle, which is the distance across it. Since the radius goes from the center to the outside, there's 2 radii that fit in a diameter, so perimeter is also often written as 2 times r times pi, or 2 pi r. I said pi comes from the diameter of a circle because a long time ago, ancient mathematicians noticed that when you take the distance around a circle and divide it by its length across, you always got around 3. And it was always just a little bit more than 3. And for thousands of years, it was estimated as the number 22 divided by 7. And if I put that in my calculator right now, 22 divided by 7 is 3.14. And then it diverges a little bit from the technical number for pi. So they had a really good estimation for what pi was just because they noticed a pattern over and over and over by taking the distance around a circle divided by the diameter. Just a little history lesson for you today. So the rest of this lesson is basically just going through example problems. So if you feel pretty good about this, you can kind of work on the homework along with this, but I'm just going to go through some examples of how to use these formulas. So if we want to find the perimeter and area of this basketball court, our width is 50 feet, our length is 84 feet. Area, you just multiply the numbers together. You've been doing this for a while. These numbers do get pretty big though, so you might want a calculator. 84 times 50 is 4,200. And when we're talking area, we always have square units, so square feet. Perimeter, we're going to take 50 times 2, and we're going to add 84 times 2. 84 times 2 is 168, plus another 100, so 268, in our case, feet. So if you ran around this basketball court once, you'd run 268 feet total. For a square, you're told the area of the square is 2.6 centimeters squared. What is the perimeter? Now, this is kind of a classic question that looks easy, but unless you know how to do it, it's kind of tricky. So the area is 2.6 centimeters squared. And we know area is equal to one side times itself. So 2.6 is equal to one side squared. So going back to algebra, how you undo squaring something is you take the square root. So we're going to take the square root of 2.6. That's going to equal one side. So we're going to put that in our calculator. The square root of 2.6 is about 1.61. And then from there, to find the perimeter, we're just going to multiply that by 4 because there's 4 sides. And we get 6.45. And that would be centimeters. So this is another multi-step problem where you find one side and then you multiply that side by 4. Finding this one side by taking the square root is something that I assume you did a fair amount of in Algebra 1 last year, wherever you took that. Here you're given a circle with a diameter of 16 inches. You're asked to find the perimeter and the circumference. So if that's not very straight, but if the diameter is 16, the radius has to be 8 inches. So quickly, using our formulas from the first page, circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So that's pi times 16. And when we put that in our calculator, we get about 50.27 inches. Area is pi r squared. So we take pi times 8 times 8. We get 201.06 square inches. For circles, all you're really doing is using the formulas and plugging numbers in. It's never really much more complicated than that. Last thing we're going to do is look at this triangle here. We're told the base of the triangle is 20 meters and the area of the triangle altogether is 260 square meters, and we're asked to find the height. So we're asked to find that length there, given that the base is 20 and the area as a whole is 260. What I like to do for these is write down my formula with all of its letters. So area is equal to 1/2 base times height. Now I'm going to plug in what I know. So I know my area is 260. So I'm going to replace that big A with 260. That's equal to 1/2 times the base, which is 20, and then times the height, which is what I'm trying to solve. Multiply over here, 260 is equal to 10h, and then we get to divide by 10, which is our favorite thing to do, and we get 26. But we're not going to leave it as 26. We're actually going to put a unit in there. If we're just talking about the height, we're just going to do meters. So the height is 26 meters tall. And that wraps it up. I said it was probably all review from stuff you've done in the past, but it's good to kind of lay that foundation for all the stuff that we're going to get to do and expand on moving forward in this class. So that does wrap us up for Chapter 1.